welcome back to Germany. Today we are at Köln Hauptbahnhof on the Schnellfahrstrecke Köln route. We're going to be driving this, well, the Talent 2, all the way to Aachen, if the frame rate holds. And I think before I won't beat around the bush, I'll try to get this train set up as quickly as I can. And as almost immediately after I start recording, there's yet another sodding plane flying over. Now, I wish you could actually zoom in further, because as it stands now, I'm struggling to read that screen. But, well, we got the right destination. Hello. Yeah, we got the right destination in the end. Yeah, this is the RE9 service from Siegen to Aachen. This, I think, is RE4 with Doppelstockwagen coaches and a DB BR442 Talent. From what I understand, the RE4 is the Aachen to Dortmund service, which curiously goes through Wuppertal. And of course I mainly know Wuppertal for the Schwebebahn, the weird suspended monorail, and it being the whole town being featured in TSW as part of the Rhine-Ruhr-Osten route. Alright, so the doors are closing, and yeah, we've got a pair of Talent 2s for this run today, and this is the 4-car version. So we've got obviously two 4-car units, so you can figure. I'm not going to tell you what they mean, or what that makes, because you should be smart enough to figure it out for yourself. And the famous cathedral is actually at the other end of the station. Well, it's adjacent to the station, but at the other end. So probably won't be seeing it today. Yeah, this is going. Oh, there's the cathedral. Actually, oh, great. It's a poor angle. That should do. That'll go on the thumbnail, methinks. So yeah, this is, as I said, today we'll be going all the way to Aachen, which is about 70 kilometres away, and we'll be stopping at several stations on the way, although obviously not all of them, but like that one there, off to the right, as this is a regional express service, and rather than the S-Bahn. But no, the stations we'll be calling at are Köln Ehrenfeld, Horrem, Düren, Langerwehe, Eschweiler Hauptbahnhof, Stolberg Rheinland Hauptbahnhof, Aachen Rothe-Erde and Aachen Hauptbahnhof. And as always, I apologise if I pronounced any of those names wrong, as when it comes to German pronunciation, I'm still a bit of a novice. Now, if memory serves, I'm mainly familiar with this area because of its inclusion with the West Rhine Köln to Koblenz route and train simulator, which I think has services for, and I think services for Koblenz leave the station in the same way that these ones for Aachen do, but I think they go on a different route. Because I'm pretty sure that the route to Koblenz does not go through Köln Ehrenfeld. There's a football ground and a couple of tennis courts. Excuse me. That's curious. A bit of a bridge that curves off to nothing. There's a freight train that's just left the main line. Yeah, in case you haven't seen it already, a while ago I did make a video that showcases each of the 3 variants of the Talent 2 that we currently have in TSW. We've got the silver 3-car version with the rapid transit route. That's classified as the BR442, and that is part of the rapid transit route, or S-Bahn Mitteldeutschland. Then there's this 4-car version, which is just the standard BR442, part of the Schnellfahrstrecke Köln route. And then the most recent version is a 3-car. It was a red 3-car version that's still classified as the standard BR442. And that's part of Nachwirke Dresden. I think I might be coming into this platform way too fast. Then again, these German EMUs generally have pretty good brakes, so I like to think that we won't screw up the stop here. But yeah, this is Köln Ehrenfeld. Once again, apologies for any butchered pronunciations. And exactly on time as well. Dare say that kind of, as much as I hate to say it, perfection. I dare say that won't last for much longer. Considering I sometimes get distracted easily and screw something up. This is actually quite impressive, seeing the scrolling screen with all the stations we're stopping at. And I've just remembered I need to put the passenger lights on. Right, there we go. But yeah, the Talent 2 is I think it's certainly one of the most interesting German electric trains, even though they're certainly not an old design. But I just like how there's like so many different variants of them, and yet they all still have the same basic, or more or less the same basic body shell. Like you've got the, I mean, I think Deutsche Bahn themselves. Let's just wait for the door. Yeah, this is the door chime. Yeah, Deutsche Bahn themselves have two. I think. Yeah, they have either 2, 3, 4, or 5 car units. But as I said, or as I showed earlier, this is the 4 car version. Interesting motor sound. I'm pretty sure that is accurate to the real thing. But yeah, no, as much as I like the Talent 2, I'm not really an expert on them. Lights. Yeah, the next stop is Horrem. Again, apologies if I've got the pronunciation wrong. So I'll just mention the Deutsche Bahn variants of the Talent 2, but there's also a few that are with private operators. And I think the only one that comes to mind is National Express, because they operate, I believe, 3 and 5 car Talent 2s and regional services around Köln and I think even Wuppertal. So I did do some digging and find that apparently the National Express Talent 2s are used, I think, at least on the RE4, which is that Aachen to Dortmund via Wuppertal service. And I think it would make a lot of sense if Dovetail were to add National Express Talent 2 to the game, because you can drive it on the Rhine-Ruhr-Osten route, and you could also use it as AI around Köln. Or no, I think you could. No, if it's RE4 Aachen to Dortmund, then you could also make it drivable on this route. I've got that realistic pantograph. Now it flexes up and down depending on the height of the wires. Now these units have a top speed of, I believe it's 160 kilometres an hour. There's a label. Why have I still got the cab light on? Silly thing. That's better. Yeah, these Talent 2s, I'm pretty sure they've got a maximum speed of 160 kilometres per hour, but on this section of the route between Köln Ehrenfeld and Düren, it's a section that is equipped for trains to go up to 250 km an hour, but the only ones that can are the ICE 3Ms, which is incidentally the star marketing relating to this route. And that's the other thing, is that this Schnellfahrstrecke Köln is the base German route that you get when you buy TSW2. You obviously get the core technology, but then you get the 3 routes like Sandpatch Grade for the US, Schnellfahrstrecke Köln for Germany, and Bakerloo line for England, but the UK is the station. Yeah, all these other stations that you'll see off to the left here are S-Bahn stations, and the S-Bahn trains on this route, at least, they go as far as Düren. all the S-Bahn services on this route, or that you'll see on this route, are run by DB BR442s, which I think are from the Rhine-Ruhr-Osten. Even though later that train was included again with Hauptstrecke Rhine-Ruhr. But no, from what I understand, yeah, the BR422s are used on the S-Bahn Rhine-Ruhr network in real life, but from what I understand, in the specific specific S19 service out to Düren, I think that's actually run by BR423s in real life. But of course, in order to have the active S-Bahn services on this route, you will need to have Rhine-Ruhr-Osten installed, because as it stands, this route by itself only comes with the ICE 3M and the Talent 2. And as a result, like if you don't have any other add-ons and you're playing on this route, it does look incredibly quiet, like unrealistically quiet, because I think these in this 24-hour timetable that Dovetail sets up, the RE9, which is the service that we're running today, is only hourly, but the ICE 3M and those services, they're every 2 hours. So you can just imagine how unrealistic, like how deserted or lifeless this route would look with just those, or like with just the default trains that come with the route and no other add-ons. And even with the other add-ons that you can use on, like whose trains you can use on this route, like Rhine-Ruhr-Osten and Main Spessartsbahn, even with that lot installed and those engines and units running on this route as well, is still very lifeless. Unfortunately, Dovetail with the Nachwirke Dresden route certainly made that route is a massive improvement on this one, even though it doesn't include a section where you can speed along at up to 200 k's like a maniac without referencing the Michael Cimbello song. And I've just realised that we need to start slowing down because the station stop is closer than I was expecting. That's the other thing, these Talent 2s have quite a bizarre horn. I think only the Dresden version has like a proper looping effect, like a smooth loop. Because on this version, especially with the S-Bahn Mitteldeutschland version, it does. You can clearly hear the recording looping. And yeah, I always find that with these first two variants of the Talent 2 that the horn sound always does cut and loop and just sounds strange. But with the Dresden version it seems to be perfectly fine. Yeah, if you look off to the right, off to the left there, you can see a pair of DB BR442 units heading back towards Köln. And another pair of Talent 2s going the other way with an RE9 to Siegen. That's the other thing with these German trains, is that because they so frequently get up to and exceed 120 kilometers an hour, which is 2 kilometers a minute, these stations and the distances go by much faster than what I'm used to. Heck, with the when you're driving the ICE 3M and you get up to 250 k's an hour, that's just over 4 kilometers a minute, which is obviously even faster than this thing could ever hope to achieve. Oh, that'll make a good screenshot, methinks. Yeah, this is Horrem, or Horrem. Oh, I really do apologise. As I keep saying, I'm terrible with German pronunciation.
Bitte achten Sie auf den Abstand zwischen Zug- und Bahnsteigkante.
I have no idea what that announcement just said. Also, that's the other thing I don't like about this route, is that it still doesn't have working destination displays. But then you go looking at like older routes like rapid transit, which that has been updated to receive working departure boards. So I'm not sure why Schnellfahrstrecke Köln, which is a more recent add-on, still doesn't have the working screens. Like Dovetail obviously have proven that they can make the active departure screens. Like if you just look at the Nachfolge in Dresden, and yeah, all the departure boards there are working, which is especially useful when you're like recording a train spotting video at any of those stations on that route, especially like Dresden Neustadt, where you've got not just the S-Bahn trains but also all the regional and intercity and even ice services stopping there. Though the speed limit on this section of the route does go up to 250, I will try to keep our train at a prototypical speed by not going any faster than 160. This horn is just so bizarre. Certainly, I can't imagine that would be an air horn. I'm not sure how we could get a horn working if it's just powered by electricity. Something else I just thought I should mention about the Talent 2s is that they're articulated, or at least the coaches and the units are articulated. It's like that's the other thing I keep forgetting about a lot of German EMUs is that they are generally articulated. Obviously that means that the inner ends of each coach share a common bogey. Although I can't show you it now, one of the other impressive features of the Talent 2 is that there's the open partition between the coaches. It's like what I've seen on the AM electric units in Auckland, where I guess it's just to allow, like, obviously passengers to freely walk up and down the train if necessary, like if they've ended up in a particularly busy part of the train and want to go somewhere that's a bit quieter. And that feature is also found on the London Underground S-Stock. Although, as far as I know, the S-Stock is the only tube train to have those open gangways. The other thing I've realised is that a lot of these German EMUs don't have vestibules or gangways on the cabins, like say the class 377 or 387 Electrostar, or just any of the Electrostars except the 357s, 376s, 378s and Hull train. And yeah, there's that BR442 we saw earlier, sort of slowly overtaking that. And I can't tell if that's slowing down or not, although it's obviously going slower than us, since I can tell that we're catching up to it. Yes, as it stands, at this point, I don't really know exactly how far along the route we are, but I should actually be able to get this shot. I don't think I'll use those shots in the thumbnails because of how poorly timed they were. Yeah, so we've got 12 kilometres to go, and we're doing over 120, so we'll probably get there in about 6 minutes, I hope. Yeah, that's the other thing about TSW is that I've noticed that there's really no like simulated faults. What I mean is like you never have a situation where you're just driving along normally as we're doing now, and then all of a sudden, bam, pantograph falls off and tears down some of the wires. Well, I dare say that if they ever did put simulated faults in the game, it wouldn't actually be that crazy, but just like occasional faults like doors not closing properly, or just refusing to close at all, possibly the throttle sticking, or just other things to try and to hopefully try and get it to seem a bit more realistic, because as it stands now it's not very I mean, whilst a lot of this game is pretty realistic, obviously it's not realistic at all to never have even the slightest bit of to never have even the slightest issue when you're driving a train. Also, I just thought that big red thing off to the left side of the cab there was like some kind of megaphone, yeah, it does look like a megaphone, even though I initially thought it was like a fire extinguisher. I can't imagine why I would ever need to have a fire extinguisher. There's a sodding fire extinguisher. Yeah, what I was saying earlier about this route being very lifeless, and I guess in some cases boring, it's like we've covered a fair distance so far, and yet we've hardly seen any trains. Like, if you did this sort of run, like for comparison's sake, I'll probably do a run on the Nachwirke-Dresden route after this one to just compare how like this very lifeless Köln to Aachen with the very busy and lively Nachwirke-Dresden. And I think that'll be a full run from Dresden to Riesa with the 3-car version of the Talent 2. Will of course be on the RE50 service. So I think the RE50 is the only regional service you can drive on that route that goes the whole way from Dresden to Riesa. I mean, there's also the intercity and ICE services with the BR101 and BR406 or ICE 3M. It's more 422s there on the eastbound lines. But yeah, the ICE and intercity train, the IC and intercity and intercity express trains on that Dresden route, whilst they do cover the whole thing from Dresden to Riesa, they only stop at Dresden Neustadt and they take a slightly different route to the slower regional trains. I'm going to check what that station is. Merzenich or Merzenich. I probably got that completely wrong, as usual. Right, I think I'll put the blind down because obviously still leaving a fair bit of the, not pulling the blind down all the way, otherwise I won't be able to see where I'm going. So I remember when I was first driving on this route, it was like doing the express runs with these Talent 2s. And finding it strange how there were so many other stations that, like quite a few stations that the service stopped at, but yet loads of others that just sailed past without stopping. And of course back then I didn't realise that those were like S-Bahn stations. But yeah, as I kept saying earlier, the problem is that there's, even with the occasional S-Bahn trains, it's still just a very dull and lifeless route for the most part, which is unfortunate because I think in terms of aesthetics and just the general scenery it's one of the better German routes in TSW. I just think once again Dovetail have not used it to its full potential. Alright, we're coming up on Düren, and I'm trying not to say too much for this. We want to slow down for stations to make sure I don't screw up, as is the case here. that's a successful, decently punctual stop in Düren. Yeah, don't mind this this architecture here. What is that? Some kind of coat of arms. I obviously don't know what that represents. What's this? Okay, I wonder where that line goes. Oh, to a head shunt. Of course, you can't really do anything in those sidings since there's no rolling stock there.
Vorsicht bei der Einfahrt.
Yes, as far as I can tell, this is a fairly important station on the route, especially since it's where the, as I said, it's where the S-Bahn S19 services terminate. So I think from this point on, the route does get a little bit more, or does get a lot quieter, and that's saying a lot because already it's pretty flippin' quiet. Right, back to the cab, I think. Actually, I think I'll walk through the train to get there. Should get a move on. Yeah, I've noticed that the cab interiors of each of the different Talent 2 variants are more or less the same as each other. But I don't really remember if there's any outstanding differences between them. Yes, that glitchy camera is always annoying. Now, if memory serves, there's actually quite a nice bridge just round the corner from here, which reminds me of one near Palo Alto on the Caltrain route. Of course, I've just remembered that this video now is kind of a return trip. This is the one I did the other day when I drove the MRCE BR185/5 from Aachen to Köln Ehrenfeld, but obviously didn't continue all the way to Köln Hauptbahnhof. But yeah, generally I avoid driving on this route because not because of the scenery. As I said, I think scenery-wise it's one of the best routes in the game. Well, German routes at least. But as I keep saying, the problem is just that there's simply not enough trains running, and I can't imagine. It seems like Dovetail don't really have any interest in fixing that issue. Even though they have proven that they can make a very busy, well, like a realistically busy German route with Nachwörth and Dresden. Although as far as I can tell, that's really the only German route in this game that it is, or that has any sections that are decently busy. The only exception I can think of is like Rheinland Osten, but even then, the only parts of that route that I think are really busy, like properly busy, are between Wuppertal Steinbeck and Wuppertal Oberbahn. The S-Bahn Rheinland S8 service with like RE4 and also like RB48, and generally if you go to any other part of that route, it'll take a very long time for you to see any trains. That's how infrequent it is. And that's one thing I've just never understood about TSW, is why so many of the routes are just so devoid of train activity, just so lifeless. Like, I think the best example, or perhaps the worst example, whichever way you want to put it, of an incredibly lifeless route is the Long Island Railroad. Oh my god, that is so bloody quiet in TSW. It's insane, really, because the LIRR in real life is one of the busiest commuter rail systems in the United States. Like, I think I read somewhere that about like 1,000 trains a day pass through Jamaica, Jamaica Station, of course, not the Led Zeppelin song. There's RE4 again, and and yet in TSW, the only LIRR services they've simulated are like the Port Washington, which is a bit of a joke because you can only drive those services between Penn Station and Woodside, and obviously you don't actually get the Port Washington branch itself, which is very annoying for a start. And then there's also I think you also get simulated Ronkonkoma services as well as like Hempstead and the Belmont Park shuttle. But even then, those, for some reason, the scheduling for those services is awful because they are just horrendously infrequent in the game, and it's just, in terms of like overall frequency, it's all wrong. Like, I think, even though I did used to drive on it quite often, I now think the LIRR is one of the worst routes in TSW simply because of how dead, lifeless and quiet it is, especially when compared to the real thing. Like, there's so much missing from that add-on, it's not funny. Like, even if they just added like the Port Washington branch or like the DM30AC locomotives and like C3 passenger cars without necessarily any major route extensions, that would have just made it a lot better. Like, even with the Dresden route, more recent, even after the main release, Dovetail did release an update that added the Meissen branch, even though Meissen-Trieberstahl is not actually the end of the line. But it is the terminus for the S-Bahn Dresden S1 line. And I'm just thinking, since they were able to make that route extension there, why the hell can they not do the same for other routes? Like East Coastway, for example, that should be extended to Hastings and Orr at the very least, because then you'd be able to do a much longer and I guess even more stimulating run with the 377. Or better yet, they could continue all the way to Ashford, which would then mean they'd have to add the Class 171, thus making the route even more interesting and diverse. Because as it stands now, the only southern trains that you can drive on East Coastway are the 313s and 377s. And with this Köln to Aachen route, I think it should also possibly include, it should be like Dusseldorf to Aachen, or, well, actually, come to think of it, like another German route that I think needs to be extended is Main-Spessart-Bahn, because as good as that route is, with all the big mountains and the steep winding track, it's only 52 kilometers long, and I think it should be extended towards Frankfurt, Frankfurt am Main, obviously. Especially when I found on, like, I think it was Google Maps, that Aschaffenburg is only about 40 kilometers from Frankfurt. So I'm just thinking, why the hell did Dovetail not only make it 52 kilometers instead of 92? Okay, granted 92 is not spectacularly long either, but it would be a damn sight better than 52. And I think, yeah, there's just loads and loads of TSW routes that are just incredibly short. And, well, I would even go so far as to say too short. Case in point, Tees Valley Line. That's only about 27 miles, and it's just Darlington to Saltburn by the Sea. When I think at the very least it should also include the branch from Darlington to Bishop Auckland. And as I said, East Coastway is another one that's also criminally short, as good as that route is. Because that main line between Brighton and Eastbourne is only about 23 miles. And then you also get the Seaford branch, which I think only adds about another 7 miles. And yeah, even this Köln to Aachen route is relatively short, and there's no branch lines. It's like Great Western Express. I think I'm going to stop whinging about these short routes and try to focus on some other things. Like getting the blinds back down. Yeah, so we've gone past that section. Now that we've passed Düren, we've gone past that section where the trains could do 250 k's. But yeah, from memory, pretty sure it didn't actually go above 160. Even though I think I have tried before, and I once got this Talent 2 up to about like at least 170 k's. But yeah, I'm not sure if in real life this 160 thing is like the actual maximum speed, like the maximum design speed, or if it's just like the maximum in service speed. Forget what the top speed of the Ice 3M is, but as I said, I'm pretty sure they can go up to 250 k's an hour on part of its route. It's almost like the basic Ice 3 with Hauptstrecke München to Augsburg. That's another obviously very fast train that can get up to 200 or past 200 k's on that route, but can only go up to 230. But the thing is that both of those high-speed sections that we've got in TSW are actually shared with other services, and there aren't any like truly dedicated high-speed lines in this game. Pretty sure in Germany there are some sections of high-speed lines like that are built specifically for high-speed trains and are only used by them instead of, or in like the freight or regional trains have to use a slower route. Because I know that France does that with their high-speed lines for the TGV trains, and I think Spain does as well. Right, so having to slow down to 60 because obviously we're going off onto a different track because we're approaching Eschweiler Hauptbahnhof, and looking at the schedule it seems like it looks as though once we're done at this next station we'll have in about 15 minutes to go before we get to Aachen. And it's about time we saw another train. That's the MRCE BR185 heading back towards Köln with some container wagons. In fact, that's basically the same sort of consist I was driving last time I was on this route. Yeah, I think ordinarily, unless I'm under special speed limits, I do try to come into the platforms no faster than 70 kilometres an hour, although even coming in at 70 is probably pushing it. Like, I mainly learnt that from driving the DB BR442 on the S-Bahn section of Hauptstrecke München to Augsburg. Because on that route you can do S-Bahn services between München, Hackerbrücke and Mammendorf. And that's yet another missed opportunity because I think there should be a lot more of the München S-Bahn system in TSW instead of just Hackerbrücke to Mammendorf. Like hell, you don't even get the underground tunnel, the underground section under the city, under the centre of München, like you get with, like what you see with the rapid transit route and the Leipzig city tunnel. Because I saw that on the München to Rosenheim route and train simulator, that does include the S-Bahn tunnel through the under the centre of München. And I think if you got like the merger workshop, or like the workshop merger of München to Garmisch-Partenkirchen and Rosenheim, you can do like an S6 service from Tutzing all the way through the tunnel and onto Ostbahnhof. I'm actually yet to try out that run, and I think when I do it'll probably be with the DB BR442, which from what I understand is being developed for TSW, but obviously, I mean, when I checked the roadmap this morning, it's still like in the in-production section. It's taking a very long time to make the BR420 as far as I can tell. So I think it says it's being developed by Trainsim Germany, who also, from what I understand, they apparently helped dovetail with the sounds on the BR423, and they've also released, or recently they released the Vosloch G6, which was a very modern diesel hydraulic shunter, and it's an 060 like the old BR363, but the G6 hasn't got side rods, which already results in a strange appearance, which is made even weirder by the fact that the wheel spacing is very bizarre. And that's the other thing, there's not really that many tunnels on this route. Yeah, I think once you get past Eschweiler Hauptbahnhof, it does get much nicer in terms of scenery. Something I've just remembered is that Aachen is actually very close to the border with the Netherlands. And the ICE-3M that you sometimes see on this route is representing part of the Frankfurt to Brussels service, which presumably goes to the Netherlands, but I don't know for certain. Obviously, Brussels is the capital of Belgium. As far as I know, the Talent 2s are purely German trains. You don't see them on international services. It's interesting that we've got the speed limit going down to 110 km an hour. Though the next station is not all that far away. I apologise for the awkward silence, but it's getting to the point where I'm slowly running out of ideas of what to say. Right, slow down now. So I remember when I was filming that Talent 2 variant video, when I was doing like the comparison scenes for this SKA version, this was the station that I used as a filming location. And I remember when I was getting a shot of the two units coupled together, in the background I think a freight train came past with BR185/2 hauling it. Hello, there's another pair of Talent 2s. That's the point, we haven't seen a single ice train yet. Which is strange. Although I dare say we might end up seeing one. I dare say we might end up seeing one as we get closer to Aachen. Right, we're actually a minute early again. Actually, I might get a screenshot of the interior for the thumbnail because reasons. That'll do. Have the interior with another train in the background. What does that say? Oh, it'd say... Can't read any of that. Is this like a warning poster or something? I mean, there's one for like an emergency exit. I can work that out despite the fact that I don't speak German. Although at some point in the future I might start learning how to speak German, just mainly so I can understand what all this stuff says. Curious that with the Talent 2s, because from what I understand they're mostly regional units, and yet in Leipzig you can see them on the running the S-Bahn services. Which, yeah, it's kind of fascinating. Although I suppose the acceleration and braking is certainly good enough for S-Bahn runs. And from what I've experienced on the rapid transit route, that version of the Talent 2 actually handles pretty well. Kind of like this one. Although saying that, this 4-car version does almost, as weird as this sounds, it does feel heavier. Even though obviously there's no sense of like forward movement when you're driving these things in a game. stations left on this run. I dare say will probably go by pretty quickly considering how fast this train can go. Yeah, the next one is Aachen Rothe-Erde. And yeah, there's this nice viaduct just outside Aachen Hauptbahnhof, which always presents a really interesting scene, especially when you're like, well, it's not often that you find a big viaduct there just outside of a town or city's main railway station. It's a little bit like Riesa. I think immediately after you curve out of Riesa heading back towards Dresden, I think you go across the River Elbe. But this viaduct in Aachen doesn't go across a river. That haven't got, still got a, dare I say, perfect score, considering that this game and the scoring system can be pretty unforgiving. And this is curious, this is Eilendorf, but from memory, no services actually stop here in the normal timetable. It's kind of like a cargo fleet on the Tees Valley line. So you've got that station there, it's in like somewhere around Middlesbrough, I think, but despite the fact that you've got passenger services running through there in the timetable on like the Darlington to Saltburn run, none of them stop the cargo fleets, which I think is rather weird. Slow down again for too long. I don't know for certain, but I think Aachen Rothe-Erde and Aachen Hauptbahnhof are the only two stations in this town. But yeah, please correct me if I'm wrong. I know that there are quite a few towns in Germany, like Riesa, for example, that only have one station. And you got huge cities like München, Frankfurt am Main, obviously Berlin, that have absolutely loads of stations. Not just like the regional and intercity trains, but also the local S-Bahn. But of course Aachen, as far as I can tell, is one of those places that doesn't have an S-Bahn system. Yes, I feel like I'm coming into this platform quite very, very slowly. Won't be too long before this video is over, thankfully. So we need to try and move on to a few other things once this is done. And a successful stop in the right place at Aachen Rothe-Erde. Yeah, this is bloody shadow in the way. This is pretty good lighting, I think. I'll just hope that wait for that stupid NPC to get out of the way. Yes, I hope that at the very least I've been able to bring something to YouTube that's at least entertaining. Because as I've said, I'm hoping that with the added commentary, that the videos will be seen as more enjoyable, but of course that's entirely up to the viewer to form that sort of opinion. Yeah, I think I was planning to do that run from Dresden to Riesa with that other variant of the Talent too, but I might leave that until tomorrow, I think. So I've been playing TSW for long enough as it is. Especially with the incident with the F40PH earlier and that infuriating lag on the Stoughton branch. That absolutely did my head in. Actually, come to think of it, I might have to completely redo that run. Because after restarting the computer, I've seen that the game's now running a lot better. So I'm hoping that if I can try to get back onto the Boston Sprinter route, then I'll have better luck getting the F40 to run properly. Well, not the F40, but the game to run with minimal lag, like what I've seen here on this run out of Köln. So I think just round this corner is that big fancy viaduct. Although this corner is actually broader than I thought. Yeah, well, actually that's a point. If you've lasted this long, I just thought I should ask an somewhat important question. What sort of routes would you like to see me cover in these sorts of gameplay videos, like these gameplay and commentary videos? Because I do have quite a lot of them, except. But if you do go to make a suggestion, please note that that I don't have every route in TSW simply because I don't want every single one of them. The ones that I haven't got are LGV Méditerranée, which is a remake of that Marseille to Avignon thing. I also don't have Hauptstrecke Hamburg to Lübeck yet, but I do intend to get that at some point. And there's the Ice 3M. Finally. I wonder which way that's going. But no, another one I haven't got is Ruhr-Siegen Nord. Although I do intend to get that at some point, like presumably when the Steam Christmas sale comes online, if I actually have enough money to hand. And West Somerset Railway. I refuse to get the West Somerset Railway because I still think it's stupid that Dovetail went and included that route, despite the fact that they still didn't have steam locomotives in the game. Yeah, now we're finally arriving in Aachen, which is, even though it's obviously not a terminus station, it is where the RE9 service terminates. And we've done it. That is a run over the full length of the Schnellfahrstrecke Köln route. And yeah, despite the fact that it obviously didn't have a lot of traffic on the line, I do still hope that you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.